Right now on Good Morning America First Look, President Trump's plan to address concerns about affordability, the debate over his proposal to cap credit card interest rates, and a new deal today to bring down electric bills.
Happening today, the battle over whether Bill and Hillary Clinton will be deposed on Capitol Hill in the Jeffrey Epstein case.
The historic gold heist at a major airport. A new arrest, the suspect returning to the crime scene.
New efforts to stop the surge of federal agents into Minnesota after the fatal shooting of Renee Good by an ICE agent.
A wild brawl in youth hockey. No parents intervening. Was it staged? And if so, who's responsible? Is hockey's fight culture to blame?
Is this the last of Aaron Rodgers?
Here's an interception for good measure.
What he's saying after a blowout loss.
Plus, Karen Reed describing life after being acquitted of killing her police officer boyfriend, why she says she fears for her safety.
And later, a first-of-its-kind toy collaboration.
From ABC News, this is Good Morning America First Look.
Good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm Sophie Flay.
And I'm Hannah Battah. We begin with the economy and Americans saying they're worried about jobs and layoffs and high prices on everything from electricity to credit card fees.
President Trump is laying out some proposals to address those concerns, but not without controversy. Here's ABC's Lionel Moise.
Today, President Trump heads to Michigan focusing on the economy, with polls showing Americans worried about jobs and affordability. Trump will tour a factory that produces Ford trucks.
Ford is ramping up that manufacturing and also going to be hiring more American workers at this facility thanks to President Trump's policy.
The president also teasing a deal with Microsoft to help lower utility bills, which have been rising across the country in part because of energy-hungry artificial intelligence data centers. Trump posting the big technology companies who build them must pay their own way. Trump is also reviving a pledge to cap credit card interest rates at 10% for 1 year, a move that could save Americans billions of dollars.
I want a cap on credit card interest rates because, some of them are 28, almost 30%. And that the people don't know they're paying 30%. The people out there, they're working and they have no idea that they're paying 30%. No way.
Critics warn capping credit card rates could have devastating risks.
The real victims would probably be the millions of Americans who no longer be able to borrow money. Some people are bad credit risks, and these companies simply won't lend to any of them.
Bank and credit card stocks falling on the news Monday, but there could be bipartisan support for Trump's proposal.
Either we politely nibble around the edges of change, or we throw ourselves into the fight.
Senator Elizabeth Warren says she spoke with Trump. Warren saying Congress can pass legislation to cap credit card rates if he will actually fight for it. Consumers also grappling with inflation. The government is set to release a new inflation report today as the president pushes the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell claims that push for lower rates is behind the Justice Department's new criminal investigation looking into Powell's testimony about expensive renovations at Fed headquarters. One top Republican senator calls the investigation into the independent Federal Reserve amateur hour.
I've said repeatedly, I very seldom disagree with the president, but I've disagreed with bad advice he's been given.
But U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro says the Fed ignored requests for information about cost overruns, necessitating the use of legal process, which is not a threat. Senator Thom Tillis is vowing to oppose the confirmation of any nominee to the Federal Reserve Board until legal matters concerning Powell are resolved. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has been quoted saying the investigation into Powell causes a mess that's bad for the markets. Hannah, Sophie.
Lionel, thanks. A new legal issue has emerged related to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the first U.S. airstrike on a drug boat in the Caribbean. Sources say the Pentagon may have committed a war crime. They tell the New York Times the aircraft used in the attack on September 2nd was painted to look like a civilian plane. If confirmed, experts say that would be a violation of the laws of armed conflict. The Pentagon has insisted all its aircraft comply with those laws.
The Homeland Security Department is facing a lawsuit over a surge of federal agents in Minnesota. It was filed by the state and the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul days after an ICE agent shot and killed Renee Good. They're trying to block the deployment of more agents, calling it a federal invasion. State and local officials accuse the agents of terrorizing residents.
This has to stop. It just has to stop.
We are not asking ICE not to do ICE things. We are asking this federal government to stop the unconstitutional conduct.
The White House says the ICE agents are enforcing the law and says the officer who shot Renee Good was acting in self-defense. Here in New York, Mayor Zohran Mamdani says he is outraged after a city council employee was detained by ICE during a routine immigration appointment. New York officials say the employee is authorized to work in the U.S., but DHS claims he is in the country illegally and has a criminal record.
Now to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation and the battle over whether the Clintons will be deposed. The former president is scheduled for a deposition on Capitol Hill today. ABC's Nicole D'Antonio has the details. Nicole, good morning.
Sophie, good morning to you. Bill and Hillary Clinton have not confirmed whether they will show up for their scheduled depositions as part of a House committee investigation into Epstein. But former President Clinton is scheduled to appear today for questioning. And we know the former Secretary of State is set to appear tomorrow. The Republican-led committee is threatening to hold both in contempt of Congress if they don't appear in person. If that happens, there's a range of consequences that could play out here. For example, during the Biden administration, two of President Trump's associates, Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, were sentenced to prison for refusing to cooperate with subpoenas from a committee led by Democrats looking into the January 6th riot. Now, a spokesperson for Bill Clinton insists the former president did not know about Epstein's crimes. Clinton has called for releasing all of the Epstein files. And Clinton's lawyers saying, quote, there is simply no reasonable justification for compelling a former president and former Secretary of State to appear personally, given that their time and roles in government had no connection to the matter at hand. He says the Clintons should be allowed to submit in writing whatever information they have about Epstein. And of course, we'll just have to see how things play out on Capitol Hill today. Sophie.
Nicole, thank you. President Trump meets with his national security advisors today to consider potential military action against Iran as the Iranian regime imposes a deadly crackdown on anti-government protesters. At least 600 people have reportedly been killed during 2 weeks of protests. Trump says he'll impose new tariffs on Iran's trading partners as one way to exert pressure. In the meantime, U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff has been speaking to top Iranian officials. The White House says those conversations have been more cordial than Iran's public statements.
Now to the historic gold heist at a major airport. Police announcing a new arrest. Turns out the suspect on the run for years came back to the scene of the crime.
This morning, one of the alleged masterminds behind a notorious gold heist is in custody. Arsalan Chowdhury was arrested after flying from Dubai to Toronto's Pearson Airport, the same airport where, in 2023, authorities say thieves made off with 6,600 bars of gold. That much gold today would be worth up to $58 million.
We believe the gold has been melted down and reconstituted into local and possibly international markets.
Chowdhury is one of the final suspects captured in a wide-ranging investigation known as Project 24 Carat. Authorities say it was an inside job. In April 2023, a plane carrying gold from a Swiss refinery arrived at Pearson Airport. A suspect driving a 5-ton truck arrived later that night, providing a fraudulent document to a warehouse attendant to receive the gold. That document was a duplicate of one used the previous day to pick up a shipment of seafood.
A short time later, a forklift arrived with a container of gold and foreign currency and loaded it into the rear of the suspect's truck.
A former Air Canada employee is among 2 suspects still at large. Although most of the gold will likely never be recovered, the local police chief is vowing to keep searching for those suspects, saying no matter where you try to run or hide, we will find you.
7 other suspects have now been arrested.
Time now for your Tuesday weather.
Good morning. Weather app doesn't get too much quieter this time of year. Temperatures above average, few showers, Ohio Valley, and a couple of snowflakes in the northeast. Now, there's a front that's coming through today. It's fairly weak into the night, but there's a stronger front Wednesday night and Thursday morning. This is the one that was going to try to team up with a storm offshore and potential for a storm in the northeast. That's not happening, but rain showers going to snow showers could bring some accumulating snows, especially into upstate New York. That chill is getting into the east and all the way down to the south later in the week into the weekend. That's your forecast. I'm ABC News meteorologist Lee Goldberg.
Coming up, the runaway horse in Manhattan.
Also ahead, what Karen Reed is saying about life after being acquitted of killing her boyfriend and what hasn't changed.
And later, witnesses describe this paraglider's terrifying plunge off the Florida coast.
Back now with a carriage horse without its driver bolting out of Central Park and into New York City traffic, crashing into several cars. The driver says the horse was startled by another vehicle. The incident is reigniting debate over banning horse-drawn carriages in the city, which are popular with tourists. Thankfully, the horse was not hurt.
Karen Reed is speaking out 6 months after being found not guilty of murdering her Boston police officer boyfriend. Reed was tried twice for the death of John O'Keefe, who was found dead in a snowstorm. Her first trial ended in a hung jury. In a new interview, she says she's felt lackluster since being acquitted, and she worries about her safety.
I don't feel safe in Massachusetts. I don't feel that the politics are safe. Every hour, I thought about my freedom and if I could lose it. And those feelings just don't disappear when a jury foreman says not guilty.
Reed was found guilty of drunk driving. She says she's working on a book and a movie, but does not yet have a deal.
Today, the Supreme Court hears arguments in a case that could reshape school sports. At issue, whether states can ban transgender girls from competing on female teams.
At the center of the case before the Supreme Court today is 15-year-old Becky Pepper Jackson of West Virginia, who competes on her school's track and field team. Becky and her parents sued the state after a law was passed banning transgender girls from playing on girls' sports teams.
Why did you guys bring this lawsuit? As a parent, I wanted her to do what she wanted to do, and I wanted her to be happy and be with her friends.
A federal appeals court ruled the state ban discriminates on the basis of sex under Title IX. But now, West Virginia, with support from other states, is asking the Supreme Court to reinstate the ban, arguing it's needed to ensure safety and fairness.
Women who came before us 50 years ago obtained the protections under Title IX, and little did they know that 50 years later, that those of us who have stood on their shoulders were going to be knocked down by men claiming that they were women.
The court will also review a similar law in Idaho. How it rules could affect bans in more than half the country. The U.S. Olympic Committee, the NCAA, and 29 states prohibit transgender girls and women from competing on teams consistent with their gender identity. Becky claims taking puberty-blocking medication prevented male puberty, giving her no advantage over her peers.
Why not just play with the boys' team?
Because it would go against who I am. I've been a girl forever, and playing on the guys' team is going backwards.
A decision from the court is expected by summer. And coming up, more nurses demand better pay.
Also ahead, this wild youth hockey brawl. Was it staged? And if so, who's responsible? Overnight, negotiations remain stalled as the largest nurses' strike in New York City history enters day 2. Nearly 15,000 nurses walked off the job, demanding better pay, staffing, and security. Some hospitals are bringing in outside nurses, and some are canceling procedures. No date has been set to resume talks.
Shocking scene in the sky near Palm Beach, Florida. A man making a splash landing in the ocean after his motorized paraglider failed. Beachgoers swam out to help the 52-year-old. He wasn't injured, and witnesses say that's remarkable.
He was in surprisingly good shape. In fact, it stunned me, and I was relieved.
It was a perfect situation, and it could have gone so much worse, and I'm just happy with the outcome.
It's still unclear why the glider failed.
We turn now to a hockey fight unlike any we've ever seen.
It's the fight during a youth hockey game that's gone viral. Now many are asking, was it staged? On Saturday, minor league hockey team, the Hershey Bears, hosted an 8 and under youth hockey game during an intermission when suddenly a massive brawl breaks out. The crowd cheering them on.
It went on for at least a minimum of 2 minutes. It's kind of cute, it's funny.
One fan saying, "That's the best intermission entertainment I have seen in years." Others say it got out of hand.
Are you just gonna let this happen? And once it goes on for more than a minute, it's kind of okay, where are the parents? Is anyone gonna stop them? Because someone can get seriously hurt. Because they were seriously pushing them down on the ice. Some of the kids were kicking each other.
But no adults tried to break it up.
The only thing that really stopped them was the buzzer and that their ice time was over.
Now, multiple investigations are underway, including from the Atlantic Amateur Hockey Association, which says it's aware of a staged fight.
I wasn't surprised to hear it was staged because it would almost have to be, because those kids are not taught anything that aggressive. You're not even allowed to hit at that level.
The Hershey Bears deny any role in the scrimmage other than providing the ice. The hockey club that the kids belong to calling safety of the utmost importance, saying it's conducting an internal review. The brawl is raising bigger questions about hockey's fight culture, which critics say is tolerated or even embraced, unlike in most other sports.
There is fighting in hockey, but there's less of it now than ever at the highest levels. One thing you have to remember about hockey, the skate blades are razor sharp. We've seen incidents at the NHL level where a skate blade cuts a player.
A fight also broke out at a Hershey Bears intermission youth hockey game just last month.
Coming up, the animal disrupting traffic on a famous bridge.
But first, have we seen the last of Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, they got on him so fast.
Time to check the pulse. We begin with a Monday night blowout.
The Texans made life difficult for the Steelers last night. Houston's defense sacking quarterback Aaron Rodgers 4 times. And in the fourth quarter, a Rodgers fumble was returned for touchdown. But things got even worse. Rodgers' last pass of the night and possibly of his career turned into a pick six. The Texans won 30-6. 42-year-old Rodgers was asked if he's retiring.
I'm not going to make any emotional decisions. Disappointed, obviously. Such a fun year, a lot of adversity, but a lot of fun. Been a great year, overall.
It was the Steelers' 7th straight playoff loss. And looking ahead, the Bills face the Broncos first on Saturday, followed by the 49ers at Seattle. The Texans and Patriots will be first on Sunday, followed by the Rams and Bears. Next, a new honor for the late, great Muhammad Ali.
He's being honored with a new series of postage stamps. They'll be released on Thursday. Ali once said being on a stamp would be, quote, the only way I'll ever get licked. Next, 2 iconic brands are teaming up.
Yeah, the first Lego Pokemon sets are now available for pre-order. The biggest set comes with nearly 7,000 pieces and a big price tag, $650.
Next, something unusual blocking traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge.
A wayward deer had one side of the bridge all to itself. Police recently closing off traffic. The deer eventually ran off. Next, a puppy in Colorado learning the ropes on the slopes.
5-month-old Benji is training to become an avalanche rescue dog, learning to ride the toboggan. His Instagram account is Benji to your rescue.
Checking more top stories, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro is defending the criminal investigation of Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, claiming Powell ignored requests to discuss the cost of renovations at the Fed. Some Republicans now pushing back, including Senator Tom Tillis, calling it a vindictive prosecution.
New video shows a suspect launching this fiery ambush attack on a police officer in Greenville, South Carolina. The suspect was found dead after a chase. The officer in the vehicle has now been released from the hospital.
The Illinois surgeon charged with murdering an Ohio dentist and his wife has pleaded not guilty. Michael McKee is the ex-husband of Monique Tepe, who was found dead last month with her husband at their home in Columbus.
Authorities released this video after arresting a suspect accused of setting a Mississippi synagogue on fire. They say the 19-year-old is seen pouring gasoline.
Today's weather, dry across the west, icy roads this morning around the Great Lakes, and scattered showers elsewhere in the Midwest and the Ohio Valley.
And finally, a big moment for the mullet.
Here's Danny New.
Show 'em what you got, Rock.
At the 110th Pennsylvania Farm Show this week,
USA! USA!
more than 1,000 turned out to take in its annual mullet contest.
I think Pennsylvania is one of the best states that has mullets in their competition.
Teenager Alex Booz here won the ages 13 to 18 category.
My man right here, Alex.
For a passion that came to him mysteriously.
I couldn't tell you exactly why, but I just decided one day I wanted mullet, and since then I've been growing it out to where it is now.
The contestants were evaluated for their cut, presentation, and commitment, with 5 different age categories, including 5 and under.
Drew, foot shoot, first place.
Meanwhile, the ages 6 through 12 winner sealed the top prize with an homage.
Knows not to mess with Sir Joseph
Dirt.
as he honored the 2001 comedy starring David Spade, Joe Dirt.
We'll do crowd's choice.
In fact, there was also a special award in honor of America's 250th birthday for the most patriotic participant. I'm assuming they all tied.
Let's win this thing!
And of course, there are mullet contests all across the land.
I'm never gonna get rid of my mullet.
A few years ago, I introduced you to Brody from Boston as he competed in the USA Mullet Championships.
USA! USA!
However, if you ask this week's teenage mullet champ about why the Keystone State's mullet is so special,
I think Pennsylvania just goes big or goes home.
now if you've been working on your mullet game for years, like some of us, the USA Mullet Championships usually closes registration around July, so you got time to grow it even longer, guys.
Looking good, Danny. That's your Good Morning America first look.
Have a great day, everyone.